Jafar Panahi and Omar Sokher. That we will not be taking audience questions today, and we also have Shada Dayani to interpret for Jafar. Thank you.
Oh, it's a real honor to be here to have this conversation with you in New York. And this is, I think the last time you were in New York was what, 20 years ago?
I
think about 2001 or 2.
نه 2000 بود. چون 2001 اومدم و خواستن انگشت‌گذاری کنم، گفتم نمی‌کنم. دستمند زدم برمیگردم.
No, it was actually 2000 because I came in 2001.
For the circle?
It was 2004 to circle. And then I came in 2001 and they wanted to fingerprint me and I refused. So they put handcuffs on me and took me back.
از هنگ کنگ اومدم برگشتم هنگ کنگ.
I was coming from Hong Kong and I returned to Hong Kong.
Having said that, you've only been in New York for a few days now, so maybe a day or so. Has anything of the city, from what you remember, of the festival, and like now this festival, the New York Film Festival now, has anything of the city struck you, or do you feel a change in the city in any way? Or anything you like in the city?
واقعا میگم
You really want to say it?
بعد اون موقع دیگه اصلا راه نمیدم.
But then they won't let me in anymore.
Let's go to the next question. That's right. I mean, the thing, going into the filmmaking itself, I know that I've always been driven by, I guess you'd call the word passion for filmmaking. It's a consuming thing, a kind of, there's like a need to make films. You know, for myself and my friends here, for the most part, it's a choice we make. But for you, the risks are so strong and so great, yet you have this passion and this extraordinary resilience and courage. And I just wonder, in terms of cinema, what pictures you saw when you were young that led to this passion that you wanted to tell stories with pictures?
من در یک محله کارگری به دنیا آمدم.
I was born in a working class neighborhood.
Okay, hear what she's saying.
You can just take this away.
Yeah, that's better. Here.
I was born in a working class neighborhood.
پدرم کارگر بود و کارگرزاده.
My father was a worker and the son of a peasant.
یه چیزی داشتش که همیشه بهم میگفت پسر حق نداری به غیر از خدا در مقابل هیچ قدرتی سر تزیین فرود بیاری.
And there was something that he kept repeating to me. He always said, "You're not allowed to bow to anyone other than God."
53 سالش بود که یه نوردرون نقاشی سکته میکنه و همونجا میفته جلوی چشم کارگرها و فوت میشه.
He was 53 years old when he was on a ladder as he was painting, and he fell down due to a stroke, and he died in front of the other workers.
من از اون موقع دنبال خدا همه جا گشتم.
Since then, I have been looking for God everywhere.
تو آسمونا پیداش نکردم.
I didn't find God in the skies.
توی تصویر پیداش کردم.
I found God in images.
خوشحالم که امروز کنار خدای حال حاضر سینما هستم و اجازه میخوام که قبل از هر چیزی نسبت به این خدا تعظیم کنم.
I am very happy to be right next to the current God of cinema. I'd like to bow to this God.
تو همون محل ما چون امکاناتی نبود، چیز تفریحی نبود، تنها تفریح ما این بود که پول تو جیبیامون رو جمع می‌کردیم و هفته یه بار از مدرسه در می‌رفتیم فیلم می‌دیدیم.
In the neighborhood I grew up, there were no resources, there was no entertainment. Our only source of fun was to put our pocket money together and once a week escape, run away from school, and go see a film.
فیلم ها معمولاً از این فیلم های تجاری تماشاگر پسند بودش.
And the films were usually commercial films that pleased the audience.
ولی یک کتابخونه هم بودش که مال کانون پرورش فکری کودکان نوجوانان بود.
But there was also a library that belonged to the Institution for the Growth of Children and Adolescents.
توی این کتابخونه یه فیلم‌های متفاوت کوتاه می‌آوردن نشون می‌دادن.
And they used to show quite different short films in that library.
مثل فیلم‌های مثلا آقای بیضایی، آقای کیارستمی و دوستان دیگه.
There were films by Bahram Beyzai, by Abbas Kiarostami, and other filmmakers.
من خیلی بچه توپلی بودم اون موقع.
I was also a very chubby kid.
یه روز یکی اومد گفت میخوای فیلم بازی کنی؟
And one day someone asked me if I want to act in a film.
گفتم آره. اونا در واقع به خاطر اینکه توپل بودن میخواستن من فیلم بازی کنم.
I accepted, but it was only because I was chubby that they had picked me.
نقش مقابل من یه بچه لاغر بودش.
And the kid playing opposite was a very thin kid.
و قصهش هم خیلی ساده بود. قرار بود که یه الک دولک بازی کردن و هر کی که این چوب کوچیک‌تر رو بیشتر میزد باید اون یکی بهش پولی میداد.
And it had a very simple plot. The two kids were playing together in a game called Alak Dolak. And the kid who could throw the stick further was being carried by the other kid who was losing.
خب وقتی که من برنده می شدم، وقتی که اون برنده می شد من راحت اون پولی می دادم می آوردم تا مقصد می رسوندم.
When the thin kid won, I could very comfortably carry him on my shoulders and bring him back.
اما مصیبت جایی بود که وقتی اون میخواست من پولی بده.
But the disaster was when he wanted to carry me.
چیزی پیدا نمی‌کرد، میرفت نهایتاً یه فرمونی اونجا یه جایی داشتن کارگر ساختمانی کار می‌کردن، فرمون پیدا می‌کرد، میومد من رو سوار می‌کرد، میومد می‌رسید تا مقصد.
He couldn't find anything, but in the end he found a carrier at a construction site. And he put me in it and he wheeled me into the destination.
در طول مدت فیلم برداری که کار می‌کردیم من همیشه چشمم به این دوربین بود، دلم می‌خواست از پشت اون ویزور بیرون رو نگاه کنم.
Throughout the entire shooting process, I was looking at the camera and I really always wanted to look through the lens and look at the world from the camera.
ولی کسی که فیلم برداری میکرد هیچ وقت اجازه نداد این کار کنه.
But the cameraman would never let me.
و این بود که من همش دنبال این بودم که چطور میشه از اینجا بیرون نگاه کرد و دید دنیا اونجا چه شکلیه.
This is how I kept searching for a way to look through the camera and look at the world with it.
بعد که بزرگتر شدم، مثلا 3-4 سال بیشتر بزرگتر شدم، خب رفتم من کار میکردم و اونا رو جمع کردم و نهایتا یه دوربین عکاسی خریدم.
3 or 4 years later, I was also working and I put I saved enough money and in the end I bought a photography camera.
و شروع کردم کار عکاسی.
And I started photography.
و اونجا استارت کار شروع شد.
This is how it all started.
At that time, you said that you saw some of these short films in this school. And a lot of those were the documentaries of Abbas Kiarostami?
نه، فیلم‌های کوتاه داستانیشون.
No, they were short features.
They were short.
مثل نان و کوچه.
Like Bread and the Alley.
یا مثلا مال آقای بیزایی مثل عروسی بیلو.
Or by Beizai, like the mustache.
I was going to ask about, well, you know, how did these films in the 60s and 70s, of course, The House is Black, Faroukzad, Barem Beizai, even Muhammad, we restored this, Muhammad Reza Islami's film. And Dariush, yes. How difficult was it to see those features?
خب ببینید اینا رو توی سینما که نمی آوردن ما ببینید.
Those films were not shown. They were not screened at movie theaters.
یا حداقل اگر هم می آوردن تو سینمایی که محله ما بود نمی آوردن.
Or if they did bring them, it was not at our neighborhood.
ما همیشه محروم بودیم از دیدنش.
We were always not given the resources to see these films.
و فقط این فیلم‌هایی که تو کتابخونه میومد دیدیم.
You could only see the films that were at the library.
I mean, like Downpour or Stranger in the Fog.
اینا رو بعداً بیرون من دیدم.
These films I only saw later on out of that neighborhood.
اونم تو محله خودمون نه، باید ماشین میگرفتیم میومدیم داخل شهر یه جایی میدونیم.
I had to get on a car and get into the center of the city to be able to see any of these films.
The guy who was selling the DVDs in Taxi, is that the way you saw some of these?
و واقعا هم این کاره بودش.
He really was a man who was selling figures.
دو تا فیلم بازی کرده بود.
And he had acted in a few films, 1 or 2.
و واقعا بعضی وقتا هم گفتش که مثلا آقای اسکورسیزی داره فیلم برداری میکنه، میخواید راشاشو ببینیم.
Sometimes he would say things like, for instance, Mr. Scorsese is at a shooting. Do you want to see the footage?
Exactly. He had everything. He had the rushes, he had everything. You know, just a few, just some comments, of course, and a little bit of the history of Abbas Kiarostami with you. He's a very special place in your life and your work, and actually I got to know him a bit. We were kind of friends for the last 10 years of his life. Maybe you could just tell us a little about how you met, how you worked with him. I know on Olive Trees, and also writing some scripts. What he meant to you as a wonderful filmmaker and artist.
من بعد از اینکه دانشگاهم تموم شد رفتم به یه مرکز دور افتاده
After I finished college, I went to a faraway place.
چند تا فیلم کوتاه ساختم و بعد برگشتم تهران. یعنی حدود 2 ساعت ما دور از تهران بودم.
For about 27 months, I stayed there, away from Tehran. I made a few short films and then I returned to Tehran.
ولی خب تو دوران دانشجویی خودم آتیش می‌زدم و دستیار کارگردانی یا ساختن فیلم کوتاه هم می‌کردم.
But of course, when I was a student, I tried everything to be an assistant director and to even make films.
تا اینکه بعد از که به شهرستان برگشتم تهران شنیدم که آقای کیارستمی میخواد فیلم بسازه.
After I returned to Tehran, I heard that Mr. Kiarostami wants to make a film.
یه روز تلفن کردم، پیغامگیرش بود، گفتم من این هستم، کارگردانم، تو تلویزیون چند تا فیلم کوتاه کار کردم ولی دلم میخواد با شما هم تجربه کنم و سر کار شما هم باشم.
One day I called him, I left a message on his answering machine. I said that I am a director and I have had a few experiences for the TV, but I also would like to work with you and come to your set.
نمیدونم چه اتفاقی افتاد یا من چگونه اون پیغام گذاشتم، لحن من چی بود، چه حسی بود که آقای کیارستمی قبول کرد.
I don't know what happened, how that message worked. I don't know what my tone was or what feeling it gave that Mr. Kiarostami accepted.
به من گفتش که ما فلان روز می‌خوایم حرکت کنیم بریم تا هم بیا بریم.
He told me that they were planning on leaving on a certain day and he told me I could join.
این کار توی طرف‌های شمال ایران انجام می‌گرفتش و منم با بقیه عوامل سوار مینیبوس شدم و رفتم.
He was shooting around north of Iran and I got on the bus with the rest of his team and we left.
روز اول رفتیم صحنه‌ای که آقای کیارستمی می‌خواست بگیره با فیلمبردار و چند نفر رفتیم سر صحنه و اینا منم رو خب چون غریبه بودم هیچ کس من نمی‌شناخت منم رو واسطه بودم که نگاه می‌کردم اینا صحبت می‌کردن که خب اینجا رو باید این کارو کنیم اینجا رو باید این کارو کنیم صحبت‌هایی بود و این من حس کردم که میگن امروز نمیشه کار کردش باید بذاریم یه روز دیگه.
The first day we got there and they started talking about how to prepare the sets and the cinematographer was speaking, the sound person was speaking and I realized that they're saying they cannot start today, they have to start another day.
خب منم سریع پریدم وسط واسه خودشیرینی گفتم من اینو شما برید تا ساعت 4 بعد از ظهر درست میکنم.
So of course I jumped in between and tried to show myself and I said you guys can leave and I will prepare everything until 4 p.m. just
خب تمام تلاشمو کردم اینا سر ساعت 4 اومدن.
I did everything I could and they arrived exactly before.
و دیدن صحنه آماده است.
And they saw that the set was ready.
از اونجا دیگه به من اعتماد پیدا کرد.
That's how Mr. Kiarostami found trust in me.
شدم دستیارشون.
And I became his assistant director.
یه روز منو سوار ماشین کرد و شروع کردیم به جاده‌ای رو رفتن و یه جا یه چشم‌بند در آورد گفت اینو بزن به چشم.
One day he asked me to get in the car with him and we drove for a bit. And then he took out a blindfold and he asked me to close my eyes with the blindfold.
و دوباره ماشین درام افتاد من صدای ماشین رو میشیدم لاستیک ماشین رو میشیدم که تو جاده خاکی داره میره.
He started driving and from the sound of the car I realized that he's driving on a non-asphalt road.
تا اینکه رسیدیم یه جایی ماشین وایساد دیدم در سمت من باز شد دست من گرفت گفت بیا بیرون و با خودش این مسیری رو بردش.
The car stopped, he opened the door, he took my hand and asked me to go with him for a few steps.
و اونجا بود گفت چشم‌بند رو بردار.
And then he asked me to remove my blindfold.
و اون پدال پایانی زیر درختان زیتون رو دیدم.
That's when I saw the ending frame of his film Through the Olive Trees.
و قرار بود اون پایین آدم ها خیلی چی که اونجا بود تا هم برن.
And the plan was for two people to be running through the thing together, but also appear very, very small at the bottom.
من دقت میکردم تو جاهایی که با هم میرفتیم، تو چیزایی که بودیم و تو طرز نشستنمون و میدیدم که اون به طرف طبیعت همیشه میشینه.
Anywhere I went with Mr. Kiarostami, I paid attention and realized that he's always sitting in a way that he's facing nature.
اما من به طرف طبیعت، به طرف تمام آدم ها میشینم.
But I always was sitting in a way that I was facing people.
و دیدیم تفاوت نگاهمون رو دیدم.
And this is the difference in our viewpoints.
فیلم‌های من شد فیلم‌های اجتماعی، فیلم‌های شد تعریف نکنیم.
My films became socially engaged films, and his films I will not explain.
So, the way you make your films, the way you've been forced to make your films, beginning with, this is not a film. So you've been making them hidden, clandestine, right? And because you started with in your apartment on This Is Not a Film, which is a remarkable film, also quite funny at times, particularly the garbage man. Go downstairs and goes, remember, the guy said, "You're shooting me." There's a whole thing going on in the apartment. I couldn't believe you could actually make a film in an apartment. my thing was, is the nature of the restrictions, severe restrictions, has forced you, and I don't necessarily get, one could look at it negatively, but I think the positive way is that you had the resilience and the genius to be able to create new forms of film, new ways of making a film. But there's no difference. I always talk about no difference between documentary and fiction film. And because of the restrictions, in many cases, I think the limitations, you were forced into circumstances to tell the stories differently, constructed. Is that going into the project? Do you work sometimes, depending on the film? Do you do it on page? Do you do it as you go?
وقتی به من گفتن تو 20 سال نمیتونی فیلم بسازی، 20 سال نمیتونی بنویسی، 20 سال نمیتونی مصاحبه کنی، 20 سال نمیتونی از کشور خارج بشی، خب من شوکه شدم.
When they told me that I could not make films for 20 years, or write, or give interviews, or leave Iran for 20 years, I was in shock.
یه مدت طول کشید تا از این حالت در بیام.
Some time passed for me to be able to get out of that mood.
یادم اون موقع دانشجوها می‌اومدن پیش من میگفتن که سخت شرایط نمیشه کار کرد و هزار تا نقید میزنن.
I remember students used to come to me and they used to complain that it is difficult, that they cannot work in such situations, and they used to have 1,000 other nags.
من با خودم گفتم که خب من چی میشه؟ منم با بهانه بزرگی برای کار نکردم، منم دیگه باید از این بعد نق بزنم.
Then I started thinking that perhaps I have reasons, I have enough reasons not to work, and maybe I should start nagging too.
فکر کردم نه باید یک کاری کرد.
But then I realized, no, I have to do something.
از دوستم آقای مشتبه میترماس درخواست کردم بیاد و ما هم شروع کردیم یک کاری انجام بدن.
I asked my friend Mojtaba Mirkarmos to come to my place, and together we started the project.
خب به ما گفته بودن که فیلم نباید بسازیم، ما اسمشو گذاشتیم این فیلم نیست.
They had told us that we could not make a film. Okay, we called it It's Not a Film. This is not a film.
من میخوام بگم که یعنی دنبال راه حل گشتیم برای اینکه راه پیدا کنیم.
What I want to say is that we looked for solutions to find a way.
اسیر اون شرایط نشدیم.
We didn't make ourselves captive to the situation.
یا مثلا به خودم گفتم که اگر من فیلم نسازم خب آدم رو دست و پاچه رسیدم هستم، هیچ کاری رو بلد نیستم، خب چیکار میتونم کنم؟
I also thought to myself, if I don't make films, what can I do? I'm a very clumsy person.
گفتم فوقش میرم راننده تاکسی میشم.
I thought, okay, maybe I could drive a taxi.
ولی خب اگر راننده تاکسی هم بشم حتما نمیتونم، وسوسه میشم، دوربین میذارم داخل ماشین از قصه آدم ها رو میسازم.
But even if I drive a taxi, I'm still tempted to put a camera somewhere in the car to make the stories of the passengers.
ایده تاکسی اومد.
This is how the idea of taxi came.
وقتی تاکسی ساخته شد دیگه همونایی که میومدن نقل میزدن دیگه کسی نمیاد نقل بزدن.
And then when taxi was made, from those people who used to complain, nobody did come to complain.
چون دیدن که اونا هم باید دنبال راه بگردن.
Because they realized they too have to look for solutions.
And in the terms of the structure, let's say, of No Bears, the structure there is very interesting in terms of the story within the story. I think this sort of judging or experiencing your first films, that this is a development that happened, I think, because of the limitations.
واقعیتی که درست نمیدونستیم چه اتفاقی خواهد افتاد، یعنی قصه به کجا خواهد کشید.
The reality is we didn't really know how it's going to end.
فقط شروعش رو میدونستیم.
We just knew at the beginning.
و شروع کردیم رفتیم جلو.
And so we just started and we moved on.
و هی با خودمون گفتیم خب حالا اگر این همسایه هم مشکل داشته باشه میخواد سگش رو بیاره پیش ما بذاره چه اتفاقی؟
And then we kept asking ourselves, what happens if the neighbor wants to leave their dog with us?
آوردیمش داخل فیلم.
We brought it into the film.
و همینطوری توی صحنه اینا رو ما پیدا میکردیم، روز به روز پیدا میکردیم.
And we just found things day by day as we went on the set.
و چون نزدیک عید بود فکر کردیم خب حالا چهارشنبه سوری رو هم بیاریم بذاریم توش.
And because it was close to the Iranian New Year, we thought, okay, we're going to bring in the fireworks celebrations on the last.
و یواش یواش همه چیز شکل خودش رو پیدا کرد و حالا قصه پردازی ما هم به انجام رسید.
And everything fell into place and our storytelling got to a point.
مونده بودیم حالا خب چطوری تمامش کنیم.
And we were wondering, how are we going to end it?
واقعا اون سرایدار ما رفته بود مرخصی.
And the janitor was actually on vacation.
و فکر کردیم خب از این موضوع هم استفاده
So
کنیم.
we thought, okay, we'll bring it into the film.
But I was thinking of No Bears, too.
من بعدا فکر کردم داشتید در مورد این فیلم نیست میگفتیم.
The difference in the stories and the different structure of the stories in No Bears. The film that's being shot, he's in the village.
نه اونجا دیگه فیلمنامه کامل داشتیم، از اول میدونستیم چی کار می‌خوایم کنیم با تمام جزئیات.
No, there we had a complete script. We knew exactly what we wanted to do, and we knew all the details.
Even the meeting with the village elders.
بعد قبلا رفته بودیم لوکیشن دیده بودیم همه چی رو داشتیم.
Yes, we had set it in advance. We had chosen the location.
فقط باید میرفتیم حالا یک دهی رو پیدا میکردیم که از نظر امنیتی دسترسی به اونجا خیلی سخت باشه.
We just had to find a village that would be difficult to get to, and that was for security reasons.
رفتیم یک دهی رو پیدا کردیم به جایی که از جاده چند کیلومتری فاصله داشت ولی راهش خیلی دشوار بود، یعنی فقط محلی‌ها میتونستن برن اونجا.
We found a village that was a few kilometers away from the main road, but getting there was really difficult and inaccessible, and it was only the villagers who could themselves get there.
ولی با این حال ما یک نفر روی ماشین گذاشتیم سر جاده که اگر هر که غریبه‌ای خواست وارد بشه به ما خبر بده.
But still, we asked somebody to stand by the road in a car, and as soon as they saw anyone coming who was a stranger, to let us know.
روز ششم بود.
That was the 6th day.
یک دفعه دیدیم ریختن توی چیز ده.
And all of a sudden, we saw that they raided the village.
ماموران اطلاعاتی بودن.
They were the security agents.
دهاتی ها سریع من بردن و یه جوری پنهون کردن.
People of the village took me and they hit me.
دیگه اون ده نمیتونستیم کار کنیم.
So we can no longer work in the same village.
و حالا باید میرفتیم توی ده دیگه یه تصمیم گرفتیم میرفتیم ده دیگه.
And so we had to shoot another image in another village and then another village and then another.
اونجا مشکل فیلمنامه نداشتیم، همه چی حل شده بود، اما مشکل اجراش رو داشتیم.
We didn't have an issue with the script. Everything was clear about the script, but we had an issue about how to bring it out.
شما وقتی توی این شرایط میخواید فیلم بسازید واقعا 50% از انرژیتون، نیروتون میره سر همین که چه راهی پیدا کنید برای کار کردن.
When you're making a film in a situation like that, 50% of your energy and your strength goes into finding a way to how to make a film.
و 50% صرف خلاقیت و کار اینجا چیزا میشه.
And you only have 50% left for creativity and for the work itself.
Because most of the time, in order to make these films, almost a lot of films, but what you're doing is to think like a thief. So a lot of energy goes into the theft.
نمیدونم اسمش دزدیه یا چریکیه یا چی هستش.
I don't know if it's theft or if it's guerrilla activities or whatever.
It's tricking, it's outthinking them and thinking 5 steps ahead. So many of the films that you make have such great humor in them. It's a general question about perspective on the difficulties of life and the most trying situations, yet tempered with humor. This is something I can see generally that you have that humor in you. Is that planned even more directly for a film, or does it just come out as you're going?
100% این هم مسئله فرهنگی هستش، هم شیطنت‌های بالاخره کاری.
100%. It's both cultural and it's intentional in the work.
یه خاطری از دوران بچگی بگم بد نیست.
I'd like to give you a memory from when I was a child.
یک دفعه ما از مدرسه اومدیم، 10-11 سالم بودش. از مدرسه اومدیم دیدیم دم خونه یکی از دوستامون تو محلمون شلوغه.
One day we came back from school. I was about 10 or 11 years old. And we saw that in front of one of our friends' home, a lot of people have gathered.
من اسامی زیاد تو ذهنم نمونه ولی یادمه که خونه علیرضا بودش.
I'm not good with names, but I remember it was Ali Reza's house.
علیرضا دوید رفت تو و بعد دیدیم جیغداد کنم برگشت بیرون.
Ali Reza ran inside and we saw him coming back really distressed and upset and yelling.
و فهمیدیم که پدرش فوت کرد.
And we learned that his father has died.
و علیرضا همینطوری دیوانه‌وار ما هم با یه چند نفر خواستن بگیرنش نشد، ما رفتیم سراغش بالاخره یه جا نگرش داشتیم.
He just kept running madly and a few people went to stop him. Eventually we were able to stop him, a few of us.
گفت من میخوام خودمو بکشم.
And he said, I want to kill myself.
گفتیم این کار چیه؟ حالا هرچی با اون زبان کودکانه خواستیم راضی نشد.
We tried to dissuade him with any language that we had as children, but he would not accept.
توی محلی بودیم که خیابون خاکی بودش اونجا.
We were at a neighborhood and there was a road that was not yet, it did not have asphalt on it.
قایم ماشین میومد میرفت.
And sometimes just some cars would come and go.
گفت من میرم خودم میندازم زیر ماشین.
And he said, he threatened that he's going to throw himself in front of the car.
ما هم رفتیم هم مانعش بشیم هم ببینیم این واقعا چطوری میخواد خودکشی کنه.
And we went to see both to stop him and to see how he is going to kill himself.
یه ماشین اومد رفت.
The car passed.
گفت نه این ماشینه چیزه کوچولوه.
He said, no, this is too small.
ماشین بزرگتر بود.
A bigger car came.
دوباره این ماشین‌های اینجوری اومدن و رفتن.
Same thing. They kept coming and going.
کات 2-3 ساعت بعد تو سینما بودیم.
Cut 2-3 hours later, we were sitting in a movie theater.
خب اینا تأثیر تو آدم میذاره، تو اوج ناامیدی، تو غم، تو همه چی یه قلقلک‌های اینجوری تحمل پذیرتر میکنن.
These things influence you at the height of despair, at the height of sorrow. Some things tickle you and they savor you.
البته مثلا تو این فیلم آخر ما یک سری طنزا گذاشتیم، یه سری چیز هست، ولی تو جاهای مختلف می‌بینم جاهایی که فکر نمی‌کنی هم این طنزه وجود داره و خنده‌ها وجود میاد.
Of course, in the last movie, it was just an accident. There are places in which I meant for humor to be, but there are also places that I didn't think would cause laughter.
این چیزا رو میگم که یک سریاش واقعا تفاوت‌های فرهنگی هست، یک سریاش ما کاشتیم و که بهش برسیم.
Some of it is intentional, some of it is just cultural differences.
Well, in the case of the last movie, I don't want to give it away if anyone hasn't seen it, but the humor in the film is constantly there. And even with Hamid is so hot-headed. He's like angry at everybody, he's hitting everybody. It's hilarious. Don't bring him in. Don't bring Hamid here. And I say, what? Okay, but the problem is, and it's not a problem, but what it is emotionally, is that what works so beautifully, I think, probably it's like a combination of what you do, but the humor disarms you to a certain extent, so that the last, and I timed it last night, the last 15 minutes is so powerful, so strong, so unexpected, and it has such truth. And there's no image of violence. It's the hearts of the people. You know, it's their hearts crying out. I've never seen anything quite like it.
واقعیت اینه که تمام انرژیمون رو گذاشته بودیم که چطور میتونیم به اونجا برسیم، به اون صحنه برسیم.
The truth is, we put all of our energy to get to that sequence.
و همش مثلا اون یکی شروع فیلم بود، یکی آخر فیلم.
And our issue the whole time was the beginning of the film and the end of the film.
توی فیلم ها معمولا روی اول فیلم و آخر فیلم خیلی دقت میکنم.
I usually pay a lot of attention in my films to the beginning and to the end of the films.
وقتی استارت کار خوبه، اول فیلم بیمه میکنه.
When the beginning of the film is good, then you can keep going.
و بیمه میکنه، یعنی که تماشاگر رو قابل تحمل میکنه فیلم برای اینکه ببینه فیلم.
When the beginning of the film is good, then it is a way of ensuring that the audience will stay with you. It's sort of an insurance for the attention of the audience.
و پایان فیلم دیگه اون باید مهر تایید رو بزنه مثلا.
And at the end of the film, you have to seal it.
اما مشکلمون این بود که وقتی می‌خواستیم اون پایان اونجا که به درخت بستنش بگیریم واقعا احساس می‌کردم من نمی‌شناسم این آدم.
But the problem was in the scene in which he's tied to the tree, I really felt like I do not know this character.
من می‌دونستم اون پلان رو باید چطوری بگیرم اما شخصیت رو نمی‌شناختم.
I knew how to shoot that scene, but I did not know the character.
خب می‌دونستم که از اول فیلم این خب از یک جای این قایب بوده تو کل کار و همین در مورد این حرف می‌زنن و این داخل صندوقه.
From the beginning of the film, he was absent. People were talking about him, but he was in a box.
ولی گفتم که پس باید این پلان رو یک مدیوم از این بگیرم و فقط این پلان سهم این آدمه.
But I thought that I had to have a medium shot for him in that shot and give the entire shot to him because that was his share of the film.
و بقیه غایب باشن.
And the rest of the characters have to be absent.
کار سخت‌تر شدش.
So it became more difficult, more challenging.
باید این 13 دقیقه و نیم بازی میکرد و بازی استثنایی باید میکرد.
The actor had to act for 13 and a half minutes and he had to have an exceptional performance.
شب اول گرفتم در نیومد.
We shot it one night, it didn't come out well.
با اون استرسای موقع کار که واقعا هر لحظه حیاتیه.
With all the stress that we have during shooting because every second counts and it's vital.
رفتم سراغ یکی از دوستام که یک چهارم زندگیشو تو زندان بوده.
I went to one of my friends who has spent 1/4 of his life in prison.
و تو دیالوگ نوشتن فیلمم کمکم کرده.
He had also helped me write the dialogues of the script.
آوردم سر صحنه گفتم که خب تو که با اینا زیاد درگیر بودی اینا رفتاراشون چگونه است به هم بگو.
I asked him to come on the set and to advise me because he knew these characters, these people very well. I said, please tell me how they would act.
حالا به کمک اون فهمیدم این کی باید سر قدرت باشه، کی باید بخنده، کی باید تحقیر کنه، کی باید بریزه.
With the help of my friend, then I knew at what point that character had to be showing full force, at what point he had to laugh, at what point he had to humiliate, and at what point he had to break down.
در مقابل شما که اصلا نباید از یک بازی تعریف کنم ولی واقعا بازی جدیدا من دوباره فیلم دیدم این آدم خیلی خوب بازی کرده.
I really cannot compliment the acting, especially in front of you, but I saw the film again recently and he has really played well.
تمام لحظه‌های سکوتش، تمام لحظه‌هایی که اکشنی انجام میده، هر چیزی من چند فریم توش اضافه ندیدم.
Every moment of pause, every moment of reaction, I have not seen any extra frames.
یعنی اگه این پلان در نمیومد فیلم واقعا نابود میشه.
If that shot didn't come out well, the film would be destroyed.
He's amazing, and amazing is a word. It's just that the intensity of his body and his reactions, and then ultimately his line where he says, "I wanted to feed my children." It's so overwhelming, but you know, the other two actors, I mean, gentleman and the woman, what's the name of the actress? I mean, they really, the rhythm is like a piece of music. The rhythm, the questioning, the pushing, and the hitting is just something that's masterful.
چون این کار خودشو کرده بود حالا اونا هم به موقع وارد شدن.
That character, the character of Iqbal had done his job and the other two characters entered in the right place.
و بازی اینا به اونا انرژی میداد.
And their acting would also give energy.
فقط یه دسته ما تو کار تو وسط تو ادعای دیدیم همه به نوعی همه گروه که کشتن هستن به نوعی دارن گریه میکنن. نه توی فیلم تو موقع فیلم برداری
At some point in the backstage, I just turned around and saw that everybody's crying.
Yeah, that's right. You watched the film?
امیدوارم بازیش دیده بشه.
I hope his acting gets seen.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful film. And funny, surprising, and it's fascinating to me to see the culture in your films. You know, even in this film, I noticed, I don't know whether this is a personal, whether it's a choice that was made personally, or whether it's an indication of a social change. But the women didn't have, many of the women didn't wear the hijab. Was that a personal decision of the actor or you, or is that reflecting kind of a social change in Iran? Also, I think their language was pretty tough.
من فیلم خرسنیس رو ساخته بودم ولی سر نمایشش توی ونیز تو زندان بودم.
I had made No Bears, but at the screening at Venice, I was in prison.
بعد شنیدیم که اتفاقای بیرون از زندان داره میفته.
Then we heard that something is happening outside the prison.
جنبش زن زندگی آزادی شروع شده بود.
The women life freedom movement had started.
ما حس می‌کردیم اتفاقی ولی واقعا نمیتونستیم درکش کنیم چه چیزی هستش.
We could sense that it's something important, but we really did not understand its magnitude.
ولی بعد از اینکه از زندان بالاخره اومدیم بیرون دیدیم چهره شهر عوض شده.
After we finally were released from prison, we saw that the appearance of the city has completely changed.
خانم‌ها تو اون جنبش بسیار مقاومت کردن.
Women resisted very hard in that movement.
از یک خط قرمزی گذشتن که اصلا قابل تصور نبود.
And they crossed an unimaginable red line.
به نظر من تاریخ جمهوری اسلامی تبدیل شده بود به قبل از اون جنبش و بعد از جنبش مهسا.
In my opinion, the history of the Islamic Republic is divided into before and after the Mahsa Amini revolution.
خب اینا تو همه چیز تأثیر گذاشته بود.
This had affected everything, all aspects.
مسلماً تو سینما هم تأثیر میذاشت.
Of course, it would affect cinema too.
من وقتی که این فیلم نامه تموم شد اینا رو از انتخابشون هم کردم آوردم گفتن همینجا بشید فیلم نامه رو بخونید.
After the ending of this, after I finished the script and after I finished casting, I brought the actors and I asked them to read the script right there.
و بعد که خوندن گفتم خب حالا فقط قول بدید که به کسی نگید ولی برید یه 24 ساعت فکر کنید ولی به من بگید که آیا توی این فیلم میخواید باشید یا نه.
Then I gave them 24 hours and I asked them to promise to not talk about it with anyone, but just to think about whether or not they wanted to be in that film.
تمامشون با رضایت کامل قبول کردن.
All of them agreed willingly and 100%.
قبل از جنبش زن زندگی آزادی خب تو خیابون واقعا کسی رو نمیدیدی بدون روسری.
Before the Women Life Freedom Movement, you could really not see a lot of people on the street without a headscarf.
خب حالا وقتی تو خیابون خانم‌های با حجاب کنار خانم‌های بی حجاب هستن نمیشد ما این رو تصویر نکنیم و همه رو با حجابشون بدیم.
But now, after the movement, when you see women with headscarf standing next to women without headscarf, we could not change the reality. We could not reflect something other than the reality.
من یه طوری مخفی فیلم برداری می‌کردیم ولی یک روزی یادم یکی منو شناختش. یه خانمی منو شناخت.
We were shooting in secret, but one day I remembered that a woman recognized me.
گفتم که خب حالا که منو شناختی میخوای یه صحنه دارم بیای جلو دوربین باشی با همسرش با هم یه دعوایی کنید چه می‌کنید؟
And I told her, now that you did recognize me, do you want to be in a shot?
برگشت به من گفتش که آقای پناهی اگر بگی رو سرت خود نمی‌کنم.
And she told me, Mr. Panahi, if you ask me to wear a headscarf, I will not do it.
وقتی که خودشون هستن همه چیز هستن ولی این رو حکومت بهشون نداده اینو خانم ها گرفتن به دست آوردن.
This is not something that the state has given to women. This is something that women have taken with their own hands from the state.
حالا من چیکار کنم؟ حالا من چیکار میکردم؟ میومدم روسری سر اینا میکردم و اینا هم خودشون به هیچ وجه قبول نمیکردن بازیگرامون.
And in that situation, what would I do? Did I have to put a headscarf? They wouldn't accept it. The women wouldn't accept it either.
ما تا اینکه اعلام بشه فیلم در کن هستش تقریبا پنهون کرده بودیم همه چی رو.
Until the announcement came that the film is going to Cannes, we had kept it a secret.
روزی که اعلام شد کنجکاوی‌ها شروع شد.
The day that it was announced, the curiosities went up.
از 2 هفته قبل از اینکه به کن بریم اتفاقاً این 2 تا بازیگر خانم رو صدا کردن.
From 2 weeks before we were going to go to Cannes, our 2 women actors were called by the security agents.
و فیلمبردارمو و داماد رو.
Also our cinematographer and also the actor who plays the groom.
و به خصوص اینا رو تهدید کردن که اونجا میرید مواظب باشید حجاب رعایت کنید یا مسائل گوناگون.
They threatened them with various things, including wearing a headscarf when they go to Cannes.
و خب تو تصاویر هست که اینا اومدن و حجاب هم نداشتن و در کل کارم بودن.
But as you see in the images that came out of Cannes, they came, they did not wear the headscarf, and they participated in everything.
So, and when you said the woman agreed to be in the film, do you find, I mean, you have so many, I think, non-actors mixed with actors. I know that the actors take a risk, but what about the non-actors? Are they cognizant of the risks they may be taking to be in the films, the later films, the more clandestine films?
بازیگرای حرفه‌ای که میگیم توی فیلم ما فیلم‌های از نوع فیلم‌های ما بازی میکنن نه سوپر استار اینا نیستن.
When we talk about professional actors in the types of films that I make, they all have been playing in this type of underground cinema. They're not superstars of mainstream films.
و اومدن که واقعا تو این نوع فیلم‌ها باشن.
And they are here to actually appear in these kinds of films.
حالا که اینو گفتید اجازه بدید که تو همون جنبش بسیاری از بازیگران خانم بودن که روسری هستن برداشتن و دیگه حاضر نشدن روسری رو دوباره به سرشون بذارن و جلوی دوربین بیان و اونا رو از سینما فیک کردن.
In the Women Life Freedom Movement, there were many actors who refused to wear a headscarf after that. And they were the actors who were eliminated from the state-supported cinema.
این خیلی سخته تو سوپر استار باشی در اوج باشی و حالا تصمیم بگیری که میخوای با مردم باشی و کنار مردم باشی و از همه چی بگذری.
It is very difficult to be a superstar at the height of your career and all of a sudden decide to let go of everything and stay with your people.
I was curious about Upside. And that was done also mainly clandestine?
نیمه مخفیانه بودش.
Half clandestine.
Because the women on the side, the young girls.
آره ولی اونو چه زمانی رفتیم گرفتیم که واقعا تو ورزشگاه کسی نبودش.
Yes, but we shot at a time that nobody was actually at the stadium.
راه نمیدونم باید بگم یا نه یکی از سربازایی که تو فیلم هستش پسر کسی که مسئولیت ورزشگاه رو داشتش.
I'm not sure if I should actually say this, but one of the soldiers who appears in the film is the son of someone who was a guard at the stadium. The rest you can guess.
What's wonderful, because the girls are laughing at the soldiers, at the boys. The boys are completely embarrassed. And there's a wonderful shot too. You follow one of the boys out into the amphitheater, and then suddenly it's a spectacle. It's a spectacle, because it's just following him, and then suddenly behind him there's thousands of people. One shot. It was great. Which leads me just to ask about the post-production. Do you naturally, again, is that more hidden, obviously? Do you do it at home? Do you work with your collaborators? Internet? And how does it work?
خوشبختانه امکانات الان اینقدر زیاده که به دست مردم که آدم به راحتی طی میکنن.
Thankfully, there are so many options and resources that it can go through the stages very comfortably.
اون زمان که به صورت نگاتیو کار میکردیم همه امکانات دست دولت بود.
When we were working with negative film, everything was in the hands of the state.
اما الان امکانات افتاده دست مردم.
But now it's all in the hands of people.
و بازم با آدمایی کار میکنیم که بهشون اعتماد داریم.
And I still work with people I can trust.
اما این فیلم آخریه به سری شرایطی داشت که واقعا نمیشد و باید میمدن بیرون اومدن تو فرانسه پست پروداکشنشو انجام دادن.
But this last film was a little difficult and I had to leave and do the post-production in France.
Which just leads me to ask so many, kind of a simple question, but so many of the filmmakers are gone now. I mean, Voss is dead. Julie and his wife, of course, were tragically murdered. Mark Novak and his family are away, are they not? Yeah. Russilov too, and Rahadi, I think they're all outside of Tehran, outside of Iran. Hagigi, all of those are, he's in Iran, I believe. Hagigi, is he? He's there. I mean, what do you see? So many, well, many are gone now. They're Julie. But what do you see in terms of what can you anticipate or feel about what the future of Iranian filmmaking is at this point?
ببینید بعد از انقلاب این مهاجرت ها به صورت ناخواسته به شکل تبعید ناخواسته شروع شد.
After the revolution, these waves of migration, forced migration almost, started as unwanted exile.
بسیاری از کارگردانان، بسیاری از بازیگران که تو اوج بودن مجبور شدن از اینجا بیان بیرون.
Many of the actors and directors who were at the height of their careers were forced to leave Iran.
از کارگردانان مثل آقای ادم‌زاده، مثل فراموش سیار و از بازیگران مثل آقای بهروز وثوقی
in the filmmakers, from the filmmakers, for instance, Alamezadeh and Parviz Sayyad, and an example of the actors is Behruz Vossoughi.
و بعد هی اینا گسترده شد این ماجراها به شکل کاری که واقعا دیگه سخت بود تحمل داشتن ایران به خصوص دهه اول انقلاب.
And this became more and more, and it was really difficult to bear, especially in the first decade of the revolution.
آقای مخملباف اومد بیرون، آقای امیر نادری اومد بیرون، آقای فرهادی الان در ایران فیلم می‌سازه یا خیلی از اینا.
Makhmalbaf left Iran, Amir Naderi left Iran, Asghar Farhadi no longer makes films in Iran.
آقای میرزایی بیرونه، تمام این کسایی که پشتوانه هستن بیرون.
Bahram Beyzai left Iran, all the backbones of Iranian filmmaking are out.
ما واقعا دلم برای فیلم هایی که اینا میتونستن تو ایران بسازن و ساخته نشد تنگ شده.
I really miss all those films that they could have made in Iran and they never did.
خب یک سری تونستن خودشون تدقیق بدن و اینجا باشن.
Okay, some of them were able to adapt and stay here and work here.
ولی یک سری مثل من واقعا من توانایی ندارم، یعنی اونقدر جرأت و شجاعتشو ندارم که بیام بیرون و بیرون بمونم.
But then there are others like myself who cannot leave Iran. I don't have the courage and I don't have the ability to leave Iran and stay out of Iran.
من اونجا موندم و اونجا کار میکنم.
I have stayed there and I'm going to work there.
ولی یک چیزی بگم، خیلی از فیلمسازهای جوانی دارن میان و الان به نوعی بهترین فیلم‌های اینا هم به همین شیوه‌ای که ما داریم کار میکنیم کار میشه.
But there's something else I want to add. There are a lot of young filmmakers who are coming and they're making the best films of Iranian cinema in the same style that we are making them.
و حاضر نیستن به هیچ عنوان زیر بار سانسور بدن.
And they are not going to accept censorship whatsoever.
و این طوری شده گسترده شده که دیگه فضاش تو فضای سینمای ایران هم این هستش که باید این مسئله رو جدی گرفت، این آدم رو جدی گرفت. یه زمانی اصلا محل نمیذاشتن.
And it has become so common that even within the Iranian cinema, within the film circles in Iran, everyone is talking about taking these people seriously, people who make films clandestinely, whereas there was a time that no one really paid attention.
با اینکه نگرانی برای ادامه سینمای ایران نداریم، ولی خیلی دلمون میخواد یه روزی بشه همین دوستانی که اومدن بیرون برگردن.
Although we are not concerned about the future of Iranian cinema, we very much would love for all of our friends who have left to return one day.
آقای رسولوف واقعا مجبور بود به دلیل اینکه فیلم برداری کرده بود، کار بقیه پست پروداکشن نمیشد اونجا انجام داد و مجبور بود بیاد بیرون و میدونم که همین مترصد این هستش که هر چه زودتر برگرده.
Or Mohammad Rasulov was forced to leave Iran because he had finished shooting, but the rest of the post-production he had to do outside. And now I know that he's looking for ways to go back.
I mean, this has to be supported by the international distribution. I would think streaming platforms, film festivals, etc. These films would have to be supported that way for us to see them. Streaming platforms have a lot of room, and they throw things that are just not up to the same level. And there's no reason why, you know, a Criterion, a movie, Amazon, all of that could show these films. I mean, neorealism from Italy in 1945 changed it gave the heart back to the Italian people that was destroyed during the war, and everything that had happened. The films themselves made us understand, made us, it gave their soul back through cinema, and that was neorealism. So cinema can be very powerful and goes everywhere. Everybody can see it anywhere now. So it's really getting to see these films, not just putting on something and putting them over, what do they call them, tiles? You could choose, you have to present, you have to kind of curate them a bit. So you know where you're going, you know what you're looking for. They should do it. They get on. But which leads me to ask the last thing at the end of Accident. I don't want to get waiting in, but there's the sound of a shuffle. I tend to think. I'm sure he doesn't have a definite answer for this. I think the whole point is that you don't know. Yeah, I mean, you know who it is, but I tend to be more pessimistic about it. Coming from the world that I come from.
But it's strange because I didn't hear such sound. I did not hear the sound of the shot.
Oh, you didn't hear it? Because a friend of mine said, oh no, that's, no, he may be coming to forgive him because of his wife. No. I don't think so. On the other hand, someone suggested it's the eternal threat.
Yeah.
ببینید واقعا کل فیلم برای من از این نظر مهمه که یک سوال ایجاد کنم تو تماشاچی.
The entire film matters to me because of the question that I want to raise in the audience's mind.
آیا در آینده این چرخش خشونت ادامه خواهد داشت یا نه؟
Is the cycle of violence going to continue in the future or not?
و تمام حرف من در فیلم این بود.
All I want to say in this film is this.
عدالت، بخشش، همه اینا رو توی فیلم هست، اما اینا فقط قصه رو پیش میبرن.
Elements such as justice, forgiveness, they're all there, they're all in the film, but they're all there to serve the plot.
این فیلم الان ساخته شده برای پس از جمهوری اسلامی.
This film has been made now for the time that we have post-Republic of Iran.
از الان ما فکر پسا رو بکنیم.
We have to think about what happens after.
و اونجا چه خواهیم کرد و شاید از الان تصمیم بگیریم.
And we have to decide about what we're going to do.
خشونت رو ادامه میخوایم بدیم یا یه جایی میخوایم بگیم به قول آقای نادری کات.
Are we going to continue violence, or at some point, as Amir Naderi says, are we going to say cut?
That's it. Thank you.